Right, live. And you can just about hear in the background the boiling of a kettle. Because tea is required. It's one of those days. It's been one of those days. Because I'm also drinking Lemsip as well. A little bit of a cold, which I'm just trying to shake off. Because I don't want the rest of the week to be dogged by this thing. But you know what? These things are sent to try us, and we kind of get through as best we can. Okay, let's see what we've got here. Just my first Twitch spam message. By followers, primes, and viewers on. No, I'm not going to read that URL out. But there we go. Yes, it's Wednesday. It's not Sunday. It's not our usual show. But the good news is we've got ourselves a very special guest talking about a very, very special book. And really looking forward to talking to him about this, about its genesis, its inspirations, what Aftershock have planned with this book, because this is an Aftershock comic book. And what they've done with this release is just incredible. They've just taken the partnership of Garth Ennis and PJ Holden and just elevated it with their own release schedule and their own format. So, yeah, we're going to get into all of this, talking about The Lion and the Eagle, which is issue 1 is out at the moment. Issue 2 comes out in a couple of weeks' time. And yeah, very much looking forward to talking to PJ Holden about this. As always, anything that you want to dive into, I mean, we won't be doing our usual kind of con chatter. So we won't be talking WonderCon badges. We'll save that for Sunday. We won't be talking about WonderCon badge sale and any struggles that you may have had having the WonderCon badge sale, considering I know 1 or 2 people. Really, I mean, it's a new system and everything, but everyone jumped on it at once, and it did get a little bit swamped. So CCI, while they are doing their best to produce a new format and get everyone set up and ready for San Diego Comic-Con, this was their test run, wasn't it, of getting their badge sale up and running and their new format. If you've swung by that page, if you've bought WonderCon tickets or badges, and if you are heading to Anaheim at the beginning of next month, yeah, do jump in on Sunday. Let us know what you think and how you thought about the new badge sale setup. So all in all, I think it's going to be an interesting show on Sunday, especially we're also going to be talking to Tess Fowler, and we're going to be talking Batman with Mark Serby as well. So yeah, all in all, fun show on Sunday. But tell you what, let's do today, shall we? Talk about cutting it, fine. But I got my tea made. I'm all ready to go. I've already had several pints of Lemsip. Yes, I'm a little bit under the weather. Hopefully you're all well where you are. Thankfully, it's just a little bit of a cold, which I'm just shaking off. But hopefully you're in fine spirits. I know 1 or 2 people who are regular viewers are kind of fighting through it at the moment. So all the best to you. Sending you all of our best wishes from the show. So yes, this is Talking Con, a cup of tea with an Englishman in San Diego. My name's Leonard Sultana. Usually every Sunday we're talking comics, Comic-Cons, and all the stuff and nonsense we get to enjoy at such shows. When we get the chance to do a spotlight episode, and really kind of delve into a specific subject and a book or a creator, we do one of these, which is one of our incidental episodes. And thankfully, PJ Holden has been incredibly generous with his time, considering he was supposed to be on the show. What was it, last week or the week before? At which point, yeah, this idiot here decided to try and decorate his own house instead of getting professionals in, which is why my bedroom currently looks like a tart's boudoir, because it's got pink stripes all over the place. It's looking particularly poor. I'm getting there, but in the meantime, I'm getting the chance to enjoy some great comics. And there's a book which I picked up at the weekend because I've been a couple of weeks lax of picking up my pull list. So like standard size books came in the pile, and then the prestige format stuff at the bottom. And this is what showed up: The Lion and the Eagle, issue 1. And we're going to talk about that book with the artist of said book, which is PJ Holden. And I think we'll go like that so we can see him in all of his glory. Hello there, PJ. How the devil are you, sir? Hang on a second. There you go.
I'm okay. I've unmuted myself.
Excellent stuff. That's well, it's always handy. I mean, I don't know what you like with sign language, but
yes, I'm all right. I'm all right.
You got your copy to hand?
I've got a copy to hand. It's not quite my copy. I'm still waiting on comps. Okay. Still waiting on comps.
I'm just going to say you got your pile of the comps to go out. Excellent stuff. Lion and the Eagle, which I mean, quite frankly, when I heard the announcement of the Lion and the Eagle, maybe it could have been. It could have been one of these because I mean, here in the UK and sort of on this side of the pond, the war comic has such a rich heritage, and I didn't know. I thought we might have this. I'm really curious. Is this where the title came from, by the way?
No, not at all.
No, really?
I mean, the title makes perfect sense in a couple of ways. I mean, I haven't asked Garth about the allegories inherent in because we're sort of following two main characters who I've been in my head thinking, well, one's a lion and one's an eagle, so their personality. But really, it's the the organization, the Chindits, that were sort of assembled to fight in World War II. Their badge and their name came from this mythical beast that called the Chindowin, I think it's called. And of course, once the army got hold of it, they kind of changed the name, became Chindit, and it's sort of made up of it. It's like it's one of those mythical creatures made of different elements. So it's made of a lion and an eagle, essentially, are the two elements within it. So yeah, and that's where the title comes from.
I mean, I know there's the bit of a discussion between a couple of the characters about the icon as well, and
yes,
about what they what they see in that icon.
Yeah, they've got a badge too. I mean, the Chindits have a badge which is on the cover, which was the Chindits' actual patch that they wore, and it as one of the characters, I think it's Alistair, points out, it doesn't even have wings. So which part of it is an eagle?
Yeah.
It's kind of, it doesn't make any sense from that perspective. So, yeah, I mean, I think one of the threads running through the story is essentially how badly put together this idea was and how badly assembled it was. And that's sort of very much reflected in the conversation Keith and Alistair have about, why are we even called this? And what, we don't even, I mean, it's a mark of how badly done everything is that our patch doesn't even look like the thing we're talking about, and it's not even, it's the word Chindit isn't even the name of the animal. It's so it's essentially war gone wrong, and usually.
Go on.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, we don't usually see a story with the British Army where the war goes wrong. It's not the way it's normally seen. So. No. But and the Chindit. I mean, I kind of, like, when I was a kid, was really into war comics like Garth. So when he first mentioned the Chindits, I knew who he was talking about. From the war comics. But like when you start doing the research on it, you start looking for films, for example, you find it's very poorly served. I mean, fundamentally because there was not an awful lot of heroism inherent in what happened. It didn't go right, and it was a horrible bloody mess, really, for a lot of them. I mean, the ones that kind of came out of it at the end intact, came out of it by marching through jungle and were ravished and famished and looked terrible. No one looked like a hero.
No.
But it's kind of with a lot of Garth's war stories, it's a grounding in whatever that sphere of combat is, plus an actual story with heart in there as well. So it's about these two guys' relationship.
Yeah, we've kind of skipped way past all the way.
I know I do that.
Our preamble. But no, it's okay. I mean, we're going to talk fully about the book, absolutely. And you've definitely given us a flavour of what your approach to the book was. So we'll get into that. But no, it is Talking Con, a cup of tea with Englishman in San Diego. So first things first, what is your brew? Because mine is Yorkshire tea extra strong. What is your brew to hand?
Leonard, I will be honest with
you. Are you on the beer? I mean, it's.
I have completely picked up the idea of tea very, very wrong, and I just had an Indian, so an Indian delivery there now. So I have just assumed you meant dinner, dinner time.
That's fine. Because I mean, okay. So what was the Indian that got delivered? Go on. What is?
It was a very boringly, it was a chicken jalfrezi. A bit dull, but it's nice. I think my wife got a green chili thing. I do kind of. There's a thing called a merg shashlik. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it.
Yes.
Which is I love a merg shashlik, but they're kind of pricey, and we get an Indian usually on a Thursday night as a matter of a kind of it's our working freelance as I'm sure you're aware. It's very hard to know what day of the week it is. So I essentially frame my whole concept of the week around when Thursday is and when we get our Indian. So I posted earlier on Twitter that I kind of turmeric alert because we've had to move our Thursday Indian to a Wednesday, and that's what we're going to be doing from now on. So my midweek marker will now be on a Wednesday, and it's almost always the same thing. I have a little app that lets me order from the Indian around the corner. I just go into it and go, same as last time, please. Thank you. Click.
Nice.
And that's
okay.
it.
No, I love the fact that that's how you interpreted tea. So I'm down with that. Okay, so that's number one. The other questions that I asked. Question number two. Can you remember the first Comic-Con that you went to? Not necessarily San Diego Comic-Con, just a comic convention. Can you remember the first one you went to? And did you go as a pro or did you go as a fan?
No, I was definitely not a pro. I think the first conventions I went to, so I'll bring you back. We're traveling back through time now. It is Belfast, late 80s, early 90s, around I think 97. So we're just at the start of the peace process. Up until this point, there hadn't been any comic shows in Northern Ireland. I think maybe the first comic convention I went to was one in Dublin. I have a very vague memory of it. I remember going to this show in Dublin and knowing a few of the people. So Garth Ennis was there, John McCrae was there, Steve Dillon was there. I mean, I know John really well. I've known John since I was about 18 or so. Garth, I kind of knew, not terribly well, but I knew. Steve I'd met. I don't think I'd even met him. I think I maybe met him at that convention. And they were at it was in a church hall or something, I think, because they were on like a stage doing a signing, and I think one of the organizers or a friend of mine or someone I knew who knew I drew, but they just knew I drew. Kind of went, why don't you sit down here? They're all the big boys at the big boy table, and I'm down in the slide further on down, all the way down the bottom, and I was sat at a table offering sketches, and in those days, sketches. I'm not sure how well people remember this, but sketches were a free thing. People used to do sketches for free, and then it's only sort of
I think
as people went to American shows and because I think there's a much more transactional nature with everything in America is commercialized and is a commodity and is. You can, which is fine. I mean, this is no way a criticism. And in fact, in some regards, it's actually better because what I find was when you do free sketches for people at shows, you'll get people who don't want to bother you. So they don't even want to come up and ask you for a sketch. And then and because they don't want to, he's over there very busy and I don't really want to ask him to do anything because, I can see he's quite busy. And then you'll get people who go, oh, I've got you're free. You're doing free sketches, right? Can you do me one of Mickey Mouse riding a dinosaur to give to my cousin Jim. And then you'll go, oh, and then you'll do it, and they'll come back 20 minutes later going, that's brilliant. Can I have another one? This one's for we made Jaunty, and can you do one of? And then you'll end up doing 4 or 5 for this person for free. And so when it went to paid sketches, then that kind of evened that all out. People who were afraid to ask, it became, well, he's paid to do sketches, and I've got some money here. I can ask him to do a sketch. That's not a problem. That's a transaction. And people who would rip the backside out of it were going, well, it's going to cost me money, so I'm not going to ask for that. That's stupid. So it kind of helped. I think it helped. But anyway, this original convention was, I was doing some sketches. And at that time, I had no idea. I had no concept of what I should or shouldn't do in a sketch. And Spawn was big, I think, at the time. And the first person came up and said, can you do me a Spawn sketch? So I was like, yeah, all right. And I penciled Spawn's head and his cape and some chains coming off him. And then I inked Spawn's head and his cape and some chains coming off. Took ages. And I inked the whole thing like that. And I went, thank you very much. Cheerio. And off we trotted. And somebody else walked right up behind me. I said, would you like a sketch? He went, yeah, could you do me one of those? very, very quickly learnt a lesson there, I think. Do not draw Spawn in all of his chains and glory. So
I'm just going to say, you chose chains, for God's sake.
I know, stupid. I mean, rookie mistake. I mean, look, here's how fast I learnt that lesson. The first one I did had chains. That was the last one that ever had chains. That lesson was learnt very fast. So that was probably the first one I went to at all, and I wasn't even really trying to break into comics then. I can't even remember how I ended up down there. I think because I knew it was a convention, and I knew it was in Dublin. I think must have gone down the train or something. I can't remember when. It must have been early 90s. Must have been. And then I think the next convention that I really distinctly remember would have been somewhere in 98 or 99. So just before the thing is, at this end of my career, the period of time where I was not a professional feels like it lasted 2 minutes. But the period of time I wasn't a professional felt like it was going on forever. So it was like, oh my God, will I ever break into comics? It's been 6 months. Why has this not happened yet? So I went to a convention. I think it was a friend of mine. I'd done some, what do you call it? Some, I'd wanted to do some drawing, some comic stuff. I would have gone into and out of being interested in drawing. I'd go into drawing, wanting to draw comics, and then come out of it because it never seemed to go anywhere. And so I'd kind of stopped. And then I'd seen, I think in Comics International, there was an advert for a fanzine called Class of 79, which was a Judge Dredd fanzine run by a guy called Stuart Croft Perkins, who went under the pseudonym of William Logan.
Indeed.
And which was the name of Dredd's first villain, Whitey Logan. So he went under that name. But I kind of wrote to him, because that's what you had to do in those days, write to people. I wrote to him and said, look, I'm interested in drawing some Dredd art. And so I kind of sent him some illustrations he could use in the fanzine. And I ended up drawing a couple of strips in it. And he said, why don't you come over to a convention? And so I went to a convention, met him, met a bunch of people. And I think there might even be a photo of that online somewhere. There's a photo of me sitting at that time. 2000 AD hadn't been bought by Rebellion yet, right. And so it was still operating under a kind of
IPC Fleetway.
Yeah, it was operating under a kind of, well, as long as nobody in IPC Fleetway seizes, we'll be all right, So they for those that don't know, IPC,
too much noise on the floor below.
Yeah, like IPC. For those that don't know, 2000 AD was owned by a publishing company who published things like My Little Pony and Barbie Doll and all these magazines and things. And then 2000 AD, which was like the weird thing they didn't know what to do with. They literally had no idea what to do with it. And it seemed to bring money in.
It was the bastard child of comics. It was.
It was. And the thing is, it had been going for so long that waves of people had come in and gone out, probably of IPC, never having seen anything with it. And every so often, someone in accounts probably would go, "What's this line here?" And it brings money in, so I'll just ignore it. and so they were ignored constantly. So they tried to have a presence at a show, and it was largely fan run. Stuart, it was sort of unofficial, official. And I think Stuart had a table there, and there's a photo of me sitting just drawn, and a guy called Mike Sevier was there, and a few other people. And because I didn't really know how to chat to people at shows, I would just turn up and just sit drawn in a corner and just hope that would be enough. I'm honestly still a bit like that. I just want to sit drawn in a corner.
I think that's what intimidates me about going up to artists about and asking for a sketch or asking for any artwork, because I feel that it's going to be taking time away from somebody who wants some instead of something on a whim, which I'm going to come up with, then someone who's going to actually want to have.
Look, if you're paying me, I won't care.
Yeah. I think we get that with a lot of creatives. I understand. So just to dovetail off that, then, I mean, so you're saying that the drive to get into comics kind of ebbed and flowed as things were kind of like barreling on.
Yeah,
what was your love of comics like? Did you ever have that falling off of love of comics?
Yeah, I mean, I've told this story a lot. So it's essentially, I was madly in love with comics as a kid. Would try and make my own comics, do all sorts of things. And
what
then
kind of
around, sorry,
what kind of books? Because it's got to be said, I did kind of bypass. I mean, I had books bought for me. I did have copies of Commando. Did have sort of a number of war comics, but they didn't really kind of grab me because I went straight from the Dandy Beano and straight to 2000 AD. So I went into. So I think I was more of a sci-fi nut anyway. So I went into the sci-fi kind of realm of it. So war comics, while a number were bought for me, and I got the small little Commandos. The war comics kind of skipped me by. I mean, was that your jam?
I suspect. No, I mean, I love war comics. I mean, like, again, growing up in Northern Ireland, there were troops everywhere, armed troops, helicopters landing down the bottom of where I lived. I remember one time a helicopter landed, troops came running out, boots on the ground, aiming their rifles everywhere, and one of the soldiers let me look through his scope, and I think I must have been about 7, maybe 6. And I was like, "Oh, this is amazing!" Because and again, at the age that I am, war films were fairly common on TV. So, and we didn't really. It was hard to get American books. It was hard to get sort of 4-color superhero books. So frequently you had black and white or 3-color. You'd have black and white and an orange or something in a comic, and it would be Warlord was my main thing. Warlord was the thing I was really into. Battle was a bit too rough boys. Rough boys beat me up, mummy, kind of. Warlord. Why I like to think of as I mean, I'm sure again this is probably meaningless to many of your viewers, but you might have seen Tiz Was and you might have seen Magpie, and I always think like
if you're going to do the comparison, I think you're going to do.
I mean, Warlord was to Battle as Magpie was to Tiz Was. Like there's a chaotic energy to it that you'd go into the school and the ones that were watching Tiz Was were the ones that had sort of punk things in their necks and stuff, and the ones that were reading Warlord were the little boys who would kind of wish they'd go off the war but would never actually do anything naughty.
Very good at conkers.
Very good at conkers.
They were very good at conkers.
And it's the same. I mean, I always thought as well, Beano and Dandy is a good comparison. Like Dandy is to Beano as Warlord is to Battle. Beano is a chaotic edge to it. And, Dandy's a much more middle class. Would you like some jam on that, Tarquin, for breakfast? And then we'll get to your comic later on. It's just a little. And I mean, I'm saying all of that in a way that's derogatory to Warlord, but that was the thing I preferred. I preferred Warlord. There was a safety to the war in that. At no point were the good guys ever going to get it. The main character in Warlord, I'm sure you remember, but it was a guy called Lord Peter Flint, who he was constantly being thrown white feathers at him for cowardice, and then he would go, "I don't really know that secretly I'm Agent Warlord, and I'm way off now to assassinate some top German generals, and then back in time for Tiffins." So it was like that. It was very, it was a bit upper middle class, and like, don't get me wrong, we were not an upper middle class family. We, I don't think anyone in Belfast was upper middle class, not even middle class. We were, I genuinely didn't have toilet paper until I was about maybe 10. Up until then, it was newsprint. So that's the level of poverty we were at. But that didn't seem, bad. But so for me, it was Warlord and it was Commando, and eventually it was 2000 AD. But even when 2000 AD came on the scene, it was Road Trooper was my main thing. So, and because it was war,
that was definitely the gateway drug for a lot of sort of the war comic fans, wasn't it? Road Trooper, absolutely, and the ABC Warriors as well to some degree, because you had that kind of real ensemble character list as well. So
well, for me, like a nerd, it was always about the equipment. Like there's one spread I remember in Rogue Trooper where Rogue had laid out his Bagman, which was the backpack, the name of the backpack, and it was laid out with all these different things around it. It was like limpet mines and translators and K rations and things. And I was just looking at it going, I could make all of this with cardboard. So exciting.
Nice. I think also for me it was Strontium Dog as well.
Yeah, Strontium Dog there was an element of that as well too. It was that kind of, wow, I could make some of these things; they'd be really cool. So I mean, I think the only reason I lost interest in the war stuff as I got older was it never like, I suppose because my interests were Warlord, but when I got older and interested in more complex things, Battle was gone. Battle had been replaced by Battle Action and then Battle Action Force. And Battle Action Force was essentially toys. It was essentially, how can we sell these toys? And all the really hardcore war stuff was gone from it. So it actually felt more juvenile by the time I was older than even Warlord did at the time, because it really was about, here's an SAS team, now go and buy the SAS toys, So so my interest, like when I was a kid, it was like I was making my own comics, and I distinctly remember a drawing of a tank, and I don't remember the drawing, but I remember making a comic because we had carbon paper which you would draw on the top of, and it would produce a copy underneath, so I could make 2 copies of a book at any one time. So I was making my own comics that way.
Wow.
And I can't remember. I mean, I'm 8 or 9, 10 maybe. Great. I don't know, 11. Don't know, not very old. And
well, it's showing some severe ambition at an early age.
It was. I think it was not so much the ambition. It wasn't like, oh, I want to do this. It was, oh, I can do this.
Like, right, okay.
It wasn't even. Wow. It wasn't even. I'm thinking ahead, and in about 20 years, I'll be a professional. I was thinking, I can. All you have to do is get some paper and staple together, and you can make a comic. What's so hard about that? Let's do this. So I would do that, and then I remember we were in this caravan site, and I had lots of cousins sort of around my age and doing a comic and somebody else taking the tank drawing and putting it in their version of a comic and then kind of selling it back to somebody else, and me being furious that they were using my drawing to kind of, but like we should have just sat there and all done it together. I don't know why we didn't do that, but who knows what you're thinking when you're that age. So but as when I got to about, I think, so what year would Captain Britain, the Captain Britain comic, 85 would have been?
85, yeah.
So about 85.
Early to mid, yeah.
Yeah, because what happened was I was going into school with a copy of Captain Britain. And I don't want to drive home the message too hard, but I went to an all-boys Catholic school in Northern Ireland, and I'm walking into school with a copy of Captain Britain, who's got a great big Union Jack flag on him, and I also don't want to oversell what happened. It was more a case of someone going, "What's that there?" and me going, "Oh, it's really brilliant. You should read it. It's really, really good." And then going, "You read comics?" And me thinking, "Oh God," and just every part of my soul deflating in one go. And so I kind of put it away, and I put away such things. And then I kind of turned my attention to computers, which were a thing I was always interested in anyway, and just focused on that because like being into computers and understanding computers had a kudos to it that being into comics and understanding comics
I think we had very similar trajectories because I also got into my IT and to computers at a slightly younger age. And there was also that
you were a whiz kid then,
you could talk about it to your parents because then they can feel, oh, there may be a career in this.
Yeah. Did
So
you
you can
get?
make a
I
job
mean,
out of that.
I'm 52, so I'm guessing we're not far off each other in terms of
I
age.
celebrated my 50th in January.
Oh, well, congratulations. So what do you call it? In that case, you would have been of an age to have been christened a whiz kid if you were into computers when you were about
I
12.
was. Yes.
Yeah. You never hear that anymore. Nobody's called a whiz kid anymore. We're the last generation of whiz kids.
The thing is, you type in WizKids into Google now, and
Oh,
you
I don't know
get
what
that
you'd get.
TV show that showed up in the mid '80s.
Oh, well, there was the Red Hand Gang,
Red Hand
I
Gang,
think.
WizKids.
Yeah, Red Hand Gang also, the name of various organisations in Northern Ireland you don't want to be associated with. So
Yeah, when you're searching, you have to make sure that there's American TV series at the end of your
yeah.
Google page.
So yeah, I mean, I turned all focus to computers, and I started picking up a magazine called Computer and Video Games, which was again, we're similar age, similar background, so you'll know. It contained a 4-page strip by Jerry Paris called Bug
It did.
Hunters, and which was glorious. And I mean, Jerry's artwork. I mean, even like I'm friends with Jerry now. We're friendly, and I've got a couple of his commissions on my wall because like Jerry's art is the art I come straight back to. Jerry's art is the art. I close my eyes and think, and I see Jerry's art. And like Jerry drew these amazing robots, and he didn't have the career maybe. He was.
No, I go
You'll
along with
not
that.
know this.
Yeah.
You'll not know this, but he used to live with Steve Dillon. And when Steve was drawing the Judge Dredd story with the werewolves, Steve and Jerry were living together. And but I think, I mean, I'm surmising this. I think what happened was Jerry could easily have gone down Steve's similar path because they were like, I would imagine they're similar ages and
Yeah.
they're both banging out. I mean, artwork at that time, Jerry's artwork at that time was on a par with Steve Dillon's. And in some respects, I preferred it. I don't want to see that as a negative to see whose artwork I idolize, but to me, like, God, Jerry Paris was the thing. So he could easily have had a career in comics. I think he went off and had a career in doing video game art for boxes and things. And I think he did book covers, and he kind of ended up in a different pathway. And I think sometimes when you end up in that pathway, I know comics are very important to you and I, but when you're not in the comics industry and you don't read comics, they sort of disappear. They sort of do. I mean, up until I can't tell you the number of conversations I've had with people. They go, "What do you do?" Oh, I draw 2080. I used to love that. Do they still do that? And it's like, yeah, yeah, it's still there. So there's a lot of people that when they left behind comics, that stuff just vanished. That it didn't exist anymore. So I mean, so, if you've ever met Mike Dory, he's Mike Dory, lovely fella. He drew some early Rogue Trooper in 2000 AD. He drew a book called Hammers.
I think I've met him at an ice.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, when I first met him, he was going, "This is baffling," because Mike's, for your listeners who don't know this, Mike's artwork was sort of 80s. Would have been the period he would have been working in comics. He did some early 2000 AD stuff. He did some stuff for Battle. And then he kind of left comics to do storyboarding for film and TV. And by leaving comics to do storyboarding, he left comics. There was no crossover. There was no, as far as he was concerned, the comics industry had died. There was no comics industry. So when he turned up at a convention, he was invited to a convention a few years ago. And he turned up at a convention, and people were going, "Oh my God, that's Mike Dory." He's going, "What?" I could just imagine his mind going, "Gee, I mean, I drew this stuff in like 1984, and you still remember it?" And people are going, "Can you do me a sketch?" And it's like suddenly a whole different world has opened up for him, and that is really. I mean, I think it's lovely. It's lovely that. Because I think you forget what an impact your art has on people, and you sit there doing your own art and doing it and thinking, well, nobody cares about this. And then you meet 20 years later, you meet someone. As I've chatted to Jerry often, and I've said how important his artwork was to me.
Oh, absolutely.
When in that period where I put Captain Britain down and went over to computers, the only comics I ever saw were Jerry's comics, and they kept me going. They kept me. I mean. I was kind of going, I'm not into comics. I'm just reading this comic and like sucking every bit of the juice out of the marrow of it and going, oh my God, if I could stay alive with this, if only, like a dying man with little droplets of water going, oh my God, this is all I need. So in 88 or so, 1988. By that stage, kind of, I'd stopped reading computer and video games. I'd kind of left drawing. I'd doodle a little bit. Comics had vanished from my life almost entirely.
Right.
In 88, John McCrae opened up his comic shop with Fred Collier called Dark Horizons. I saw this poster up, and I hadn't seen black and white comic style artwork in maybe 2 or 3 years by that stage, maybe longer. And I saw this, and it was like, you know, it's weird. It's like when this happens, when things like this happen to people in films, what happens is the world becomes even more colorful or something. It's that moment where you see, you know, you walk into a room, you see a girl, and she turns, and her hair blows everywhere, and it's all slow motion.
Everything goes slow motion. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like that, except it was a piece of black and white artwork, and I can see it now on a telegraph pole, pasted on a telegraph pole, pure black and white artwork in a full color world. I'm just seeing this and going, oh my God, that's an illustration. People do that. And it was like, and there's a comic shop. And I actually, I think I might have still been reading computer and video games. I don't think they were doing so much with Jerry Paris's work at that point, but they had an article around that time.
I remember the strips as well, because I was a huge fan of, because I read CMVG as well. And yeah, there was this period when they changed the logo and they just went pure. I mean, the advert section at CMVG was always big anyway, but then they just kind of like they tripled the ads at the back.
Yeah, it was a massive magazine. Print magazines at that point had become ridiculously 9 inches thick kind of things. But they did an article, maybe 4 pages or 2 pages, which was one of the early Kapow Comics Have Grown Up articles. And they had in it a picture from it was a page, and it was like literally thumbnails. I mean, I strained to read the words on it. I could read it, but only just about. And it was a thumbnail size image of the page in The Dark Knight Returns where Batman has killed where the general has killed himself, and Batman's holding him, and he's got a cape over him or a flag over him, and there's the whole kind of Batman monologue about, you know, the general was, you know, whatever it was. I can't remember exactly what it said, but I can remember reading it and thinking, oh my God, is this what comics are now? I mean, I've been away from them for a long time. Is that what they are? Is this what Batman is now? Because whoa. And that sort of was around the same time Fred and John opened the comic shop, so it was 88. And I went in, I thought, well, you know, I'm bound to meet, and no one's going to make fun of you. This is my logic, because I hadn't been into a comic shop yet. No one will make fun for the comics you read in a comic shop. How wrong I was, but that's what I thought at the time. So I went in, met everyone there, ended up doing like working the odd Mondays down there and catching up on reading, going to John's house and doing some drawing and stuff. But John's career then started taking off, and as John's career took off, and he went, I kind of started working, and kind of, you know, I sort of lost my way a little bit, and wandered away from comics again, up until I think so. I met my wife in '95, and I was doing a little bit of drawing, but it was around '97 then I think that I kind of started kind of going back into comics a little bit. And then in 2000, I took, or 99, I took this job that was, so I was coming up to age 30, and I took this job in a computer place. It was a charity that was 2.5 days a week or 3.5 days a week. It was like a minimum amount of days. I thought, well, if I can take this job, it's a bit of a pay cut, not much of a pay cut, but a bit of one. If I take that job, I can spend the rest of the time trying to break into comics. And I'm nearly 30, and 2000 AD's coming up. And I remember reading 2000 AD as a kid and thinking, wow, in the year 2000, I'd be 30. That's like, just, and then of course you come up to age 30 and you're thinking, well, that went faster than I thought. And it was the year 2000 as well, and that was a big deal. And it just felt like, you know, I should try. And the reality is, I don't think I tried as hard as I should have done, but I went to a convention then, and at that point, Rebellion had just bought 2000 AD around 99, 2000, and they did a DreadCon, like the first DreadCon, which was I think it was in London, and I went over there with my now wife, then girlfriend, and we stayed in this. It was a horrible hotel in London. I mean, it was so horrible. It was like a window that size in it, and when the guy gave us a key, it was attached to a rod that was about 9 inches long, so that we wouldn't walk out with it. And the for breakfast, because you could get breakfast there was a restaurant that was down a circular like a spiral staircase, like a really tightly spiral sounds lovely, but this wasn't. This was like in a submarine, and it was down a spiral staircase and above the sign. So the only way to get into it is to go into the hotel, walk up past the reception guy, go into the spiral stair, the tightly wound little thing, to get down into the sort of basement for breakfast, and above the spiral staircase to get into it said, "Beware of thieves and pickpockets."
Okay. Did we stay in the same hotel? Because I used to go down to London for Earl's Court for Plaza for the DJ convention. It's very possible we stayed in the same hotel. That sounds awfully familiar.
It sounds awful.
Yeah.
But yeah. I met Andy Diggle at it, and I showed him some work, which at that point I'd maybe been doing some fan work for a couple of years. And he went, "Yeah, you're getting better, so I'll probably give you something." I went,
he's brutal like that, isn't he?
He is. Well, yeah, I mean, like the first thing I did for him was a dread, and so I phoned at that point. I'd done some small press stuff with Gordon Rennie, and Gordon had done some dread as well. I just like Gordon had been doing stuff for 2000 AD for a few years by this stage, and I emailed and say, "Andy's going to give me some work," and Gordon went, "Well, I've just sent him a dread. I'll just ask for you to do it." I went, "Oh, it's all happening too fast." So what do you call it? Andy sent me a script. He said, "Just take your time, whatever." The way these things work are, it was always going to be an inventory story, so it was just going to sit in a drawer.
Yeah.
He said, "Take your time." Take your time is the worst thing you can say to an artist, because what happens is they take their time. I think I redrew it 5 or 6 times trying to get it right, and going, "Oh my God, this is so hard. I've never done anything this difficult." And then I sent it to Andy, and I phoned him up and said, "Well, what do you think?" He went, "It's not the best dread I've ever seen." Oh no. And I actually genuinely said, "Andy, I'm going to redraw all of it." He went, "No, you don't need to do that. It's fine." I went, "Nope, going to redraw all of it." I says, "And I'll tell you why." He says, "Why?" I says, "Because if you are not impressed by me, you will simply never ask me to do anything else ever again." I mean, it won't even be try harder. It'll be, no, you'll just go to whoever's next. Whereas if I redraw it, at least you'll know. And if it's better, you'll know I'm going to really put it on the line. Also, by the way, how much am I getting paid for this? Because I'd forgotten to ask. Like an Egypt.
I think if that's like the second or third question you ask Andy Diggle or any editor of 2080 at the time, they are going to remember you, because if you're not asking about the page rate. Yeah.
Well, I think the fact that I was bending over backwards to do this, even if it wasn't particularly good, I think was proof positive that I was really prepared to graft to make it look good at some point, And I mean, there's a lot of artists that I really like now in 2000 AD that I remember their first work in the 90s and thinking, this is terrible. Why is that? Why are they in the comic? And the reality is that you've got to learn your trade, and it's it's
a grind.
You can learn it.
It's a grind.
It is a grind, but it's also like if you can learn it while you're getting paid, then you'll be able to learn it. If you can't get paid to learn it, you may never get the chance to learn it. So in the early days, there were so many different comics you could have been tried out in here, there, and everywhere. Now there's kind of 2000 AD and not much else. But also the thing is, a lot of people like now people tend to break in their 30s because they've done a couple of years in the trenches and doing small press stuff, so they tend to be much more fully formed by the time they get to 2000 AD. Most of the artists I know that have broken in have been sort of in their 30s. Very unusual to be very young and break in now, but not impossible. I'm not saying it can't happen or it won't happen, but it's also, I think, as well, when you're quite young and you're not quite good enough, you've got to live. You've got to eat.
I'm curious as well if it's a case of, like you say, there isn't the books that people get the chance to. I mean, like you say, when we were growing up, we had a number of books that we could turn to. I think the younger generation now, it's 2000 AD or it is the Phoenix. It's for the very young. So there's kind of like this real
still the Beano.
Oh, there's still the Beano. Absolutely. But I mean, it's when you go to Comic Cons and it is mid-30s upwards,
there's more talent than there is venues for them.
Yeah.
It's just the horrible reality. There's far more talent than there is venues. Oh, if we
Explained
were
by
to have
the
a
more press is just blowing, and Kickstarter's just blowing through the roof because people are wanting to tell their stories, and that's the avenue that they've got to do it.
Yeah. I always worry things like Kickstarter are other people on Kickstarter buying other people's Kickstarters, and it's which is a nice, there's my dad's an antique dealer. He's in the trade, so he buys and sells antiques. And there's a very common antique dealer joke, which is that three antique dealers wash up on a desert island, along with a Georgian chair. So everything was all right because they were able to make a living.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and it's fair. I mean, it's very true. Like if you see any antique, and an antique dealer, and you see an antique come up on an auction, you can turn to that antique dealer and say, "Did you ever own that?" And they'll go, "Yeah."
That's the yes.
Had that.
And what's the history on it? Yeah.
Yeah. When I had that, it was only 25 quid. That's the story of my dad's life. Is when I owned that teddy bear, it was a fiver, and now it's gone for 500 quid.
Well, that's where you start looking at your old comics as well and start realizing how much they're worth now. And you just
no, sadly not. Sadly not. The comics fall under the title of ephemera, which is to say things that can disappear very quickly. And what tended to happen is that ephemera is only valuable because no one thought it was valuable.
Are you I had this conversation with somebody online the other day, and we will talk about the book pretty soon. I swear. we have to talk about
Sorry,
the book.
It's been nearly an hour and I just ranted.
Not at all.
I haven't even gotten into, Leonard, whether I like tea or not, and that's a whole conversation on its own.
It's a good question.
I let that pass by.
I haven't even asked question number 3 yet. I usually ask 3 questions. I haven't even done number 3. The conversation I had with someone online the other day was: are you somebody that buys the books and bags and boards them, or are you somebody that got your copy of Batman, rolled it up, back pocket, pulled it out on the bus, and just tore through it?
I would.
Are you a back of the and I rolled up and put in the back of the pocket, and the responses were like, ah! It's just like this.
No, I am definitely. I'm in the middle of that. I'm someone who would. I firmly believe these things are to be read, but at the same time, like nothing gives me more of a heart attack than someone flicking through a book and ruining the edges of it. It's like, don't do that. Don't do that. Just give that to me. But I will sit and read it. I will read it very delicately, and then I'll might put it in a bag, might just forget about it, might just leave it somewhere. But I'll never GCC slab them, and because they're to be read. No. They're to be read. That's the thing of them. It's like I think I saw a slabbed copy of Batman 500. I have Batman 500 here. It's in a wee bag. It's got Bill Sienkiewicz cover. Yeah, I think it's a Bill Sienkiewicz cover, but inside is Brian Bolland. There's, I think Kevin Nolan's in there. Bill Sienkiewicz is in there. There's a whole bunch of artists in there. And I saw this slabbed version of it. I was thinking, I love that cover, but my God, the insides are inside it, and they're amazing. What you'll never be able to see them from that copy. It's just nuts. Yeah. So the early 2000 AD. There's so many issues of 2000 AD, and the people that kept it. So it's not really worth an awful lot of money. Yeah. And even a lot of the other comics that have long since vanished, they're not particularly worth a lot of money either. They just aren't. So partly because the value of these things are always essentially what someone else is prepared to give you for it.
Yes.
You can decide it's worth £1,000, but if no one's prepared to give you £1,000, it is not worth £1,000. So, if you say to someone 20 quid and they'll go, nah, it's all right, mate, then not worth 20 quid.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Okay.
Yeah, so but I like having my books, and I'm one of those people that goes, oh, I've got Dark Knight Returns. I don't have this edition.
I've got 2. I've got a nice pristine copy, and I've got the one which hasn't got a front cover on it. And
is that the one you bought at the time?
Yeah, when Frank Miller came over to the UK, I said I want to take that copy down, and the missus nearly shouted at me. It's like, you are not taking that battered thing down for Frank Miller to sign.
I think I liked it. Those books were important to you, and that shows. I've got a copy that I bought around 88 or 89 that is, like, it's crusted at the edges and it's fallen apart and it's been stored in a stinky old garage and stuff. And that's the original copy. And I've got a pristine new copy of it as well. I've got the Dark Knight Returns book, which is the art edition one.
All right, okay.
Amazing. I'll never be able to read it because it's so bloody big, and I've only got little arms, so real trouble there. And I don't have it yet, but I intend to get there's a range called the Batman Noir books, which are essentially just black and white versions of various books, which for some reason all the spines are different, so it really annoys me. But they're all black and white, no color.
Yeah, I've had this conversation online as well, because I feel that because I'm a firm believer that every element of a book makes up the book, including the colorist. And I know that Frank he's got his history with his missus, and
the colors in the Dark Knight Returns are amazing.
And it just feels like very disrespectful to not have the book with those beautiful colors.
See, where I would differ is that I don't consider the black and white versions the book. I consider them ways to look at the black and white artwork. If they didn't have lettering on them, I'd be happy enough.
Gotcha.
Which is why I like the original art editions, because they are big scale versions of the black and white art. And that comes from, I think, for me, from reading black and white comics as a kid. I like black and white art. I just like it. It just does it for me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, what was I didn't ask. What was the piece that was on the Telegraph pole? Do you know what comic it was?
I mean, if you hang on, if you want to give me one brief second, I bet you I can find a copy of it, because John did. I'm going to keep talking. You're not going to see me. John did a recent art of the Mighty World of McCrae books.
I've got that to hand. I think that's upstairs somewhere. I've got to do that as well.
Within that Mighty World of McCrae, that poster is in there. So I can actually show you what it looks like. Let me see if I can. Here we go. Here's the very page.
Oh, and so what, we'll go solo to yourself. Oh, there it is.
There you go.
Nice.
I remember looking at that at the time and thinking, that's really Alan Davis kind of art style, and being proud of myself for recognizing Alan Davis style artwork. But that was the poster John did back when John had a much more mainstream art style. As well, and a particular taste in women, which is very evidenced on that drawing. That was 1987 is the date on that, so it was 88. But if you've got that book, it's in there.
Oh, I have that book. Okay. Excellent.
So there you go. So that's so if you imagine that, I'm like dreary Belfast, not bad day, but like an okay sort of day. Everywhere's grey color. There is color in Belfast, but we haven't quite tuned it in. It's the William Gibson quote: "The color of a static of a television," just that kind of coloring. And then you see this black and white thing that that is an instant connection to childhood and an instant connection to things. I mean, again, I like the last proper comic I was reading was Captain Britain by Alan Davis and Jamie Delano.
Yeah.
And so Davis's artwork was a big influence. I love Davis's artwork. And so seeing this poster that was very influenced by Davis, I think, in the use of black and stuff, was like, whoa, this is suddenly direct connection.
Spooky. This is so spooky because, I mean, like I say, I'm mentioning that I'm decorating upstairs, which means we've pulled everything from the attic. I've got the Action Annual 1979 with Hookjaw on the cover. And the Avengers with the Liberators inside. So that would have been that's 79 as well. And the Captain Britain annual as well, because I didn't read the floppies for Captain Britain. I got the annuals. So the hard cardboard.
I don't remember the Captain Britain annual, but at that time distribution would have been a bit weird in Northern Ireland. It was a bit odd. Also, if you had any of those Captain Britain comics, Jerry Paris was in there as well. He was doing a strip about Starship guys, about a team of space guys. It was a very, like, one of them I think had a tiger head and one had like a weird spaceship head and stuff.
I'm gonna have to investigate. I really am. Okay, so tell you what, like you say, now we're approaching the hour. So tell you what, you have
Better
got
get that tea question answered. I don't
absolutely.
really
I'm
like
just
hot
going to
drinks.
say we'll ask the third question, and you've got
Okay.
3 minutes to answer it.
Oh
Okay,
my
let's see
God.
if
All right.
this
All right.
is a challenge. The third question is if when you've gone to cons and you've met your contemporaries or met your idols, those people that have influenced your art style. Is there ever been that moment where the brain has just taken a bit of a left because you're facing down one of your idols and you just suddenly go a little bit cotton mouthed, a bit weak in the knees? Has there ever been any of that kind of moment?
I don't. I think what tends to happen is I get a little bit stiff and a little bit kind of. I mean, when I'm at comic conventions, I'm like the Duracell bunny. I'm sort of hopping all around the place.
Nice.
So when I meet someone that like I was in New York Comic Convention and Dave Gibbons. I was sat at the table. Dave Gibbons came over to chat to me and he's, "Oh, PJ, how are you?" And I'm going, "But you're Dave Gibbons. Why are you even talking to me?" But at the
Yeah.
same time, that's not what my mouth said. It was like, "Oh, Dave, how are you? Doing well? All right, nice, good, go. Yeah, lovely. Yeah, it's great. And a big convention. Good." And then he wandered off. That was Dave Gibbons he was talking about. I don't even know why. So no. I mean, I don't think so. But at this point, it's sort of, they're all your contemporaries. They're
Sure.
sort of they're your peers and your contemporaries, and I I'd like to meet. There's the names of the people that I would really like to meet and would go, "Oh my God, this is amazing." Every time I think that, I kind of think, you don't want to hear me wittering on about how important this story you wrote in 1988 was to me. I mean, you might like to hear it, but you can't sustain a proper conversation that way. You've got to
No,
adult up and chat like a professional to someone. So, so
sure.
I don't know. I mean, I've met Alan Moore. I mean, I know John Rappy and Liam Moore. And I mean, the temptation to go, "Your dad is Alan Moore," to Leah is very strong. But at the same time, that's a silly thing to do, so I wouldn't do it. I mean, I
Yeah.
have done it, but I wouldn't do it again.
I mean, I've told the story a number of times of the moments when I've kind of lost it, but no, I think when I've spoken to other professionals, I think it's more a case of they're just like, well, we just want to talk. Because I think it was Declan Shelby. I turned around and said,
Mhm.
so how do you break that barrier down where you can just have a proper conversation about bands or films or just banter down the pub? And they went, no, we want to sit around and talk about art. We want to talk. No, we'll talk about our art for a while.
Maybe Declan does.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay,
No,
so
I mean, it's essentially it's like asking, do you get as an accountant, do you get excited by other accountants? And it's no, I mean, we're all peers, we're all professionals. Yes, it'll be interesting. I mean, 9 times out of 10, if you're talking to another professional, you get excited about a third professional who's not in the room.
yeah, fair enough.
It's like,
Okay,
oh, what about that guy?
yeah. So okay, let's talk about this book. Let's talk about The Lion and the Eagle.
Go out and buy it, readers.
Indeed. I mean, it's oversized. I'm not going to say overpriced because that's just a bad thing to put on the back of a comic.
Well,
But it does
I
say
think, I mean, I think
oversized.
actually,
It's
it's
you know what?
physically.
I don't think it is. I think
I
it's a
don't think it's
bloody good
overpriced
deal.
because it's essentially it's a 40-page comic, so it's I think it's $7.99, so
Yeah.
that's not bad for two comics really, and it is
$7.99 from OK Comics in Leeds. Thank you very much
yeah.
indeed. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so it is, and it's also physically like a bigger book.
Right, well, tell you what. Let's start with the genesis of the story then, because I can
Okay.
imagine that Aftershock did not come to you saying, "We want to do a prestige format book. What have you got?" I think that obviously Lion and the Eagle
Well, they've
started.
gone straight to Garth for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah. I mean, so who had the first germ of the idea? Who came to who with the original
Oh,
concept?
it's
Because
always Garth. It's
yeah,
essentially always Garth going. I mean, I generally, if I'm doing a thing with Garth and it's coming to the end of it, I'll say, "Would love to do something else with you. Maybe let's give it a year before it's another war book, though." and
because I
then
mean,
and then
you've definitely got formed together. I mean, with
yeah.
Stringbag, World of Tanks, and other books as well.
Mhm.
I mean, what was the reaction from you when he came to you with a? I'm not going to say another war book. I
Oh well,
mean,
I mean, look, I mean, you would, yeah. I mean, I think generally, I would say yes to Garth on anything, because I think he's a great writer, and I think, you know, I'm not stupid enough to go, I could do better.
Right.
So you know, if Garth's got a story, whatever it is he wants to tell, I'll be there for it if he thinks I'm appropriate. I think when I've done a war book for, you know, the last war book I did was String Bags, it took about nearly, you know, 9 months or 10 months or something, working kind of intently, and you kind of come out of it thinking, I want to decompress and do something silly, you know. And I spent a long time doing Dread and you know, 2080 stuff, which was fun. And you know, Garth kind of goes, "You interested in doing another war book?" And that's like, of course, what is it? And it was this. Now the thing is, Garth kind of went Chindits. I went right jungle. Okay, so there's not going to be many vehicles in that, as there's just jungle, and there, you know, there's no buildings because it's just jungle. And I went, yep, definitely going to do that, because that's got no vehicles and no people, you know, just jungle. And oh my god, like page 2, as I'm sure you've seen, is not no vehicles. Got no vehicles in it. Oh god, it's like I think the script said something like 100 airplanes on the ground, with each plane had 20 soldiers kind of boarding the plane while bringing on donkeys. That's not even yeah. There's a double page spread, I think, as well, that is kind of on your preview split into 2. Where it's got hundreds and
I'm
hundreds
trying to
of
scroll
planes.
through. It's scrolling through a PDF. So
Oh,
bear
I
with
know,
us.
I know. It can be a pain.
It's not going to.
Yeah,
It's not going to do it. Yeah.
yeah. But that first scene, it was like me going, "There's a lot of vehicles."
Yeah.
So, you know, it was hard work.
I
But yeah, I
don't.
mean,
I
you
really
know,
don't doubt it.
yeah. But you never. I mean, you
So
don't say no to Garth, so you know,
I mean,
you'd be foolish
how
to.
how long? I mean, what was the production timeline on this? Because I mean, the one thing that you take away from this is you clearly spent a lot of time. There's blood, sweat, and tears on the page, and we're not just talking, like you say, the hardware.
Yeah,
It's a real character piece. There's some real acting and emotion going off throughout the entire book. This was something that you there's a lot of emotion and sweat and tears in this book. I mean, what
yeah.
was the production timeline? How long are we talking about?
I think it's been about a year. I mean,
Yeah.
like, were we? Yeah. So COVID. Yeah. So it was, I think, January, February or something last year. So it's coming up on a year. I mean, there's always I kind of, with a project like this, it is essentially, if you're doing 20 pages a month, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's 8 episodes, so it should be, you know, whatever. It's 4 episodes, should be about 8 months. Should be
Sure.
about 8 months. I always give myself an extra month to begin with, to kind of go, look, I need time to kind of build a library, a morgue of photos and a morgue of kind of stuff, reference images and so on. And then, you know, I don't think I could start it right away as well, so I had to take a little time to do that. And like the reality as well is, I started this, and then towards the middle of the third one, I think, I got an email from John McCrae asking, could I hop on and help him out with a book he was doing called Soul Plumber.
Yes.
John had long COVID, has long COVID, and he was finding it a bit of a struggle. And Soul Plumber, I thought, well, I'll help John out here. It can't be more than a couple of pages. And I penciled 2 pages on the first issue of it, and I think I did thumbnails, or layouts rather, kind of loose pencils. So tight pencils are unusual for me. I don't really do them, and John doesn't really like them anyway, because he kind of, but there's a really nice little compatibility between our art styles, which means that when I do kind of roughs or loose pencils, he can, you know, he does his own thing, and you would look at it and you'd never see my artwork in it. But if you looked at my artwork and compared it, you go, oh, I can see what PJ was doing there. That, you know, which is, and I think John as well. John trusts my storytelling, so you know, it was a very, like, I think John was in trouble deadline wise, or rather, DC's deadline was coming around, and just needed, you know, the machinery of that, the machinery of getting these books on time can be difficult. when you're a human.
Relentless. Yeah.
You're relentless, yeah. And so John asked if I could help. I did a couple of pages in the first one, then I did about half of the rough pencils in the second one, and then from the third one I did all of the rough pencils and about half the inks. So I ended up doing essentially 6 issues of another book, but 4 issues of another book between 2 issues of this. It wasn't really meant to be that way, but that's the way it was. And I also did an issue of Time Before Time as well, which was a kind of, and I wrote and drew a 4-page short for 2080 as well. Between there was some gaps
nothing
there.
Nothing like piling it on, is there?
I know. Well, I'm weird. Like, it's always been a weird thing with me, is that I like pressure. I like it far more than I really, when somebody goes just whenever, that kills me. That is like, oh, I don't know when you'll get this. If you're telling me whenever, I don't know when you'll get it. If you're saying I need it, in 4 days, and you've given me 9 pages, and somebody else has asked for a thing that's due in 3 days, and somebody else, I'll get all of that done. Don't you worry. Just let me. No problem. Yes, sirree, Bob. All of it'll happen.
You may have to skip curry night.
Well,
just once.
I mean, then it's just refueling. Then it's order curry, refuel, work away. Order curry, refuel, work away. So yeah, I mean, I've always worked better under. Like the first day, going back to when I took the day job that was part-time. The first day that I turned up for the new job, my direct boss, said to me, says, "Look, we were trying to find you some physical space near the server to sit and work, but I accidentally unplugged it and the whole system is down. Can you sort it?" I wet myself laughing that day. It was the funniest thing that's ever happened. And I enjoyed it. It was like, this is great fun. This is great crack. I'm really enjoying it. And the best time I had in work was after the building had burnt down and I had to assemble a network for like 30 staff out of bits and pieces I could find lying around and reassemble the network. I love stuff like that. I don't know why. I think my brain's just wired a bit weirdly. So when everything's going wrong in my brain, there's a calmness and a sudden, if we do this like this, A, B, C, D, E, everything will get sorted, and that's not a problem. So, so with John's stuff, I was able to kind of keep everything aligned and go, because John does this weird chaotic thing of going, like, I'll pencil 20 pages of a thing and send it to John, and I'll say, "Do you want me to ink some of this?" And he'll go, "Yeah, if you can." I'll go, "Right, I'll start inking page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4. Whereas John's gone, "I've inked page 15, and here's now page 9, and I've also inked page 2 and page 19.
Yeah.
And you're like going, "Why are you? Don't hop around. Just give me it in order." So there's a kind of chaos. It comes out amazing in John's artwork. I think that's actually, weirdly, I think that's what really works. So the book's called Soul Plumber. The issue 5 is out 2 weeks ago. It came out at the same time as issue 1 of this. So unusually, I had 60 pages of comics on the comic book shelves this last week or a week ago. So I think that's what really works in our artwork. There's a nice kind of, I'm bringing order and structure to the storytelling, and then John's ladling on the pure chaos of it all. So it looks amazing. So
it's a real oil and water setup then.
Yeah, I think. I mean, it's just that, it's a vinaigrette and oil, and it kind of, and it's just shaking it about and just making it into something that frizzles on your tongue. So so it's not. I mean, I come away thinking, I wish I could do what John does. I wish I could do a bit more chaotic and a bit more chaos. And I think, no, I've got to do this in the order. It's got to be done in the right order.
Yeah.
So there we go.
That's the engineer in you. That's absolutely. With this book coming through Aftershock, because I mean, Garth has got history with Aftershock with the war comics, doing Dreaming Eagles, which was I think it was one of the first.
I think it was oversized as well.
No, it was a standard sized issue.
Oh, was it? Okay.
But it was one of the first 3 books that came out from Aftershock. It was the first wave of Aftershock. It was kind of like the statement of intent from Aftershock and from Mike and from the team. But we're now talking. I mean, that was what, 5 years ago now.
Yeah. I mean, comics is funny. Like, everything moves super slow in comics. Yeah. Nothing. This
is their first prestige format book.
Yeah.
When did you find out about that, and who kind of took the idea of doing a prestige format book to who? I mean, was it Garth going, you know what?
Well,
I think
I think it was pretty much Aftershock to Garth, because Garth said to me, the book will be, they're doing this new fancy oversized format. I went, okay. I mean, the thing is, I'm drawing all digital now, so I don't really notice the difference. I just set up a page format and just draw. I don't really notice that it's physically bigger. I suppose if I was doing it on paper, I'd go, oh, sugar, this is bigger than normal comic book size. This will take longer. It's like, if I fill up all of this with foliage, it's going to take an hour longer than if I have a smaller page size. So that was possibly a mistake doing it all digital that way. But yeah, I mean, it was there from the get-go. It was there from when, I don't know if they said, Garth, we're doing a new prestige format series, do you want to pitch something? Or whether Garth pitched something and they went, we're going to do it in this new prestige format series.
Yeah.
Because I'm curious. I mean, I'm grateful for it.
Because with DC Comics having going great guns with the Black Label stuff, I'm just curious if it was a case of Aftershock going, we want in on this. Let's.
I don't know. I mean, it's a big gamble, because it would have been. I mean, I'm sure the wheels have to be in motion a year before any of this stuff sees print. Even when DC were doing it, you know, and I mean, having anecdotally spoken to a couple of managers of comic shops, I know they hate the format. I know they hate it because, their problem is that if it doesn't,
I'll put it on the shelves, just on a physical region.
It goes on the shelf, which is fine. But if it doesn't sell, it's got to go in storage. And when you're putting it in storage, all your storage is built for standard comic book sizes, unless you've got 2000 AD storage. But if you're someone who's stocking old issues of 2000 AD, you very quickly find you run out of space, because there's one a week. You know, it's 52 issues in a year. That's in 1 year you'll have that many of one of each issue. You know, it's a big chunk of them. So storage is the biggest issue, I think, is the biggest problem. I was down my local shop, my local Forbidden Planet, and I did some sketches for them down there, feeling guilty that, I don't want them to be left with any. Do some sketches should help them. But it's a gorgeous looking book, I think, is the first thing. So it does look lovely on the shelf. And I think I feel like you can't just do business as usual isn't going to work necessarily. No. I think, if you are doing a limited series like this, you want to stand out a little bit. You want it to be something that, you want a prestige format, I mean, look, let's get the false modesty out of the way, or the real, I don't think I should be in a prestige format book. I don't think my art's good enough, but it is. So,
well, excuse me if I disagree with you on that one. So,
well, okay. Yeah. So I was putting my all into it. And I think there's some pages there that are really nice. And I'm quite happy with a lot of it. There's a lot of it I'd look at. I mean, those 2 page spreads there, I'm looking at them thinking, no, that was like a year ago. I mean, it feels longer than a year ago, because realistically, I've drawn in the region of maybe 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, maybe 100 and then 40, 80, maybe 200 pages since then. And you feel like you improve with every page, even fractionally.
Well, I mean, I know that we were talking before we came on air that you're kind of into the final taper at this point. Is it like the final 30 pages, something like that?
Should have been finished earlier, but say I kind of took on the job of helping John on Soul Plumber, which neither of us knew what that would involve. When we started it, it was like, I'll help you out here. By the end of it, I was like, John was helping me out because I was doing most of it. So he was kind of going, I kind of went, John, whatever you want to do here, and this is the last issue. So if you want to do these pages, and I'll do these pages. And he's going, at this point, it's like your book. I'm not, so whatever you want to do. I go, no, whatever you want to do.
I'm really curious because, I mean, you kind of got it with Dreaming Eagles as well. It's not exactly a forgotten story of wartime, but it's definitely one of those stories that just doesn't get told.
Yeah. I mean,
so
I'd say
how much was on the page which he gave you, and how much research did you have to kind of go off and do on your own to kind of fill in your side of the
I think I mean, Garth knows what I'm capable of in terms of research anyway. And Garth knows this stuff quite well. And
Yeah.
so what you'll get is, you'll get a script that is essentially one printed page to one page of comics. So,
Right.
which is how I like it. That's the perfect amount of script for me. Just the perfect amount, because it kind of, like, especially on a 40-page script, and there's the physical process of drawing it means you're kind of going page by page and going, is that right? I'm drawing it. Is that right? And I'm drawing it. So the shorter the script, the easier that becomes, because then you're
Sure.
not kind of messing around. So, like, there's also, Garth doesn't necessarily hold my hand and go, right, I'm going to talk about now what's on this page. But I'll get a follow-up email saying, look, episode 1 is going to feature these kind of things and this and this and this. And here's some photos of these airplanes, for example.
Right.
And,
Okay.
but it'll be largely be left with me for some of this. I mean, the flashback scenes with the Indian Army, and I don't think Garth mentions which regiment or anything like that. So I'm off, and the thing is, I'm kind of going, what regimental cap is he wearing? And so you're kind of trying to find a regimental cap that makes sense for the time period, while also realizing that, like, I can't afford to spend 9 days on this. It's a cap badge. Who's going to see
Yeah.
it? So you're researching it, and you're doing Google search, and then you're kind of discovering things you didn't know about. And I mean, I'll order up. I have I'm at this point, I might as well open up an account with Osprey and just get the books directly from them. But I have a bunch of Osprey books, and for any project like this, I'll get the Osprey books for the period and for the armies involved, and then I'll kind of dig through those a little bit. But frequently they have a couple of paintings that are reference images, and then a lot of text, and the text isn't that useful really. But so then I'll Google, and you'll find on the Wikipedia entries and things, you'll find different things on there. But sometimes you've got to go with good guesswork as well. Like, for example, the Chindits are wearing their badges as they're talking, but they don't wear their badges in the theater. Now, that was a decision I took on the basis that I'd read. I can't remember exactly where I read it, but I'd read somewhere that when they were there, they didn't want to be identified. They didn't want the Japanese army to recognize which regiment they were, so they didn't wear the regimental badges and stuff. Again, it could well be I misread that. It could be that's a piece of reference that I don't know, and it could well be it doesn't really matter in the overall scheme of the book, because the book isn't about that. It's not
No.
about that thing. It's about these guys and stuff. So, I try and do as much research and make sure it's as right as I can get it, but you're limited by time,
Sure.
and not just time. You're limited by, like, there's only so much of this stuff you can learn. If it's not, like, the people who really know this stuff really know it back to front. And I always like to think it's like, if I showed that comic to a World War II expert and they'd go, oh, well, these are the wrong type of
Sure.
treads on this tank. I go, yes, but is that the right kind of snake? Is that, is that the correct, gauge of tire on that wheel? Is that, there, as a comic artist, there are so many things you need to know. Like I mean, even down to, again, someone might go, that's the uniforms that are slightly wrong. I'll go, what about the foliage? And they'll go, I don't know anything about foliage. I'll go, yeah, I'm supposed to know all that as well.
Yeah.
It's not enough. It's not enough knowing what the uniforms look like. I've got to know what a packet of cigarettes from 1942 would look like as well.
Sure.
Stuff you've got to know.
Yeah.
So, but I don't
let's
begrudge. I
talk-
mean, I enjoy it, but it is intense.
Sure. I mean, let's talk about the rest of the creative team as well, because I mean, for myself, I mean, while I've talked about the emotion and the characterization that you put on page with the characters that we've got as part of our cast list on the book, the warmth and that stifleness, that tightness of being in the jungle really comes through. Certainly with the color work by Matt Miller as well. I mean, if we could talk about that for a while, because I mean, what was your reaction when you started seeing the colored pages coming back?
Well, I mean, they're gorgeous. Like, they're really beautiful. There's some elements where like I always feel sorry for a colorist of my stuff because it's like, oh, I have just gone to town with textures and things, and you're gonna have to slice all this up, and I'm really sorry. So I just instantly want to apologize to colorists and go, I'm really sorry. And then there's the factors that, like, I'm working off reference from black and white photos, so I don't really know what the color of some of these things are, which makes the job harder for the colorist because I'm kind of going, I think this is a bronze color. I think this might be gold. I think this might be brown. And these are like, and you know, it's also quite difficult because all these guys are wearing the same clothes. You know,
Sure.
they're all wearing the same uniforms, but you also want to be able to tell them apart to a certain extent. So it's not an easy job, and Matt's done a spectacular job on it. And I think you're right. I mean, it's some beautiful coloring in there. I mean, it really does bring the thing. It makes you feel the heat. You know, the stifling heat of.
I mean,
Of
it's
the place
when
and the
you
period.
it's when you turn the page and it turns to a night scene, and I physically felt the room go colder.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's some gorgeous nighttime stuff in there. Stuff that you do in black and white that you think, I hope this will work when it hits color.
Yeah.
Hopefully that'll look nice. And then it's like, oh, it does look nice. There's some lovely. I mean, my favorite kind of touches are where you see dappled light, where something is kind of dark, and then there's a wee bright streak hits across it or something. That's like, oh, that's lovely because that's not drawn. I don't draw that in. You know, that's Matt doing
That's
that
all, Matt.
himself. So it's both a surprise to me, and it's really pretty to look at. So.
Well, it definitely pops in the prestige format as well, having that
Yeah.
larger page and seeing that larger canvas. With the book, when Garth came to you, I mean, because I mean, the first couple of pages, it's talking about a kind of a closure to the story. I mean, how much of the story were you kind of told and informed when you started?
Garth would
Was it
generally give me
or were you given the basic layout from the word?
Garth would generally give me the kind of paragraph synopsis of the whole thing. First of all, as a kind of, interested in doing this kind of thing? Yes. Here's the thing. Sounds great, and then I'll start getting scripts. And the scripts, I think they're right. They're right. I mean, generally with Garth, I don't know, like, he is a machine in that when it comes to stuff like this, it will be right. You're getting a script tomorrow. Boom, boom, boom. And it's like, did you had that? Where like?
Where was? Yeah.
Had you? Was that all already typed up? What? These are 40-page scripts. So I got them. So this is the thing. I'm still drawing it, and Garth finished writing it like a month into the project starting. He'd finished the whole thing. So for the past almost year, he's been looking at old scripts. I mean, I like, he's already been paid. So looking at it, I'm getting paid when I'm getting the pages in. He's already been paid because he's done the script. So he's still committed to the work. So I feel quite sorry for him in that respect. It's like, imagine doing a job a year ago and you have been paid for it and you've spent all that money and people are still bothering you and asking you about it, and you're still having to kind of follow through and go, yeah, like, yeah, this is the way it should be. So yeah, it's a major commitment from him as well. But he's got a bunch of books coming. It always amazes me when I send Garth stuff and he's going, that's on page 5, panel 2. In the script it says this, but you've drawn that. I'm going, how do you even remember that? You wrote it like a year ago. Flip's sake.
Yeah, I mean,
so yeah,
I did a live stream with Garth, and I think it was a John McCrae special episode, and we had Garth on as a special guest, and it was raising funds. So he raffled off a copy of his Sarah script, and he was just going, I may have to read this first because I may have to just remind myself about how I wrote this and how I kind of deconstructed it. So I do like the fact that he for the emotion and for the power and the drive of the book, he is somebody that will then put it out on hit send, and he'll just let it fly. And he'll let
there's no doubt in Garth's mind about his work. I mean, I send stuff.
Definite jumping off of the cliff while stitching the parachute together, but knowing damn well that he knows how to stitch.
Oh, yeah, he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. I, on the other hand, preface every single email of artwork that I send with, I hope you like it. Fingers crossed.
Fair enough.
Like
how has the reaction been to the book that you've heard and what you've taken?
I try not to pay attention to it.
What's Aftershock reaction been?
Well, so in terms of reviews and things, I'm still in the middle of drawing it, so only an idiot would look at those reviews,
Sure.
which I am. So I'm not going to talk about them because it's better not to. It's better not to think about it. I think it's an unusual book because I think it's much more like a novel that's been
Yes.
sold in chapters.
I mean, I didn't want to say, why do you think this book was the one that was chosen for the prestige format? Because, I mean, some of the other titles in the Aftershock catalog, there's some real bombastic and big kind of, you know, like sci-fi stories and real, yeah, there's some other stories. This is it's intimate, it's gritty, it's emotive, and yeah, I mean, I totally get why they've gone for this book for the prestige format, but it's such I
mean, you're asking questions well above my pay grade.
Yeah.
I'm just grateful for the work, Governor. So I honestly don't know. Certainly, it's beautiful to look at in that oversized format. I do feel that one thing the reviews maybe seem to have reflected, and to its detriment, is that it's not like here's the bombastic first issue, chums, let's
Sure.
go. It's more, this is this is a novel. This is
I'm
a
not going to say
novel.
slow burn, but there's this simmering heat to it.
Yeah, there's simmering heat, and I mean, it really opens up. There's a sequence in, I can't remember if it's the second or third issue, there's a battle sequence in it that is essentially 8 double-page spreads or something. It's
Wow.
It's a full-on thing, and in some senses, I feel like in order to justify that kind of thing in a book that's about a real event, you have to really set up your pieces on the board properly. And I think a lot of readers might think, oh, they're spending a lot of time setting up the pieces on the board. Well, yes,
Yeah,
because yes, because it's you've got to do that in order for the thing to have an impact on whenever it's all told. So
sure.
I don't know. I mean, honestly, look, I mean, I don't know. I can't wait to see it collected in one volume. I think it's going to be a beautiful looking book
Very,
based
very
on
much
well, and I really don't regret having the book because it's gorgeous looking as well. That's really
I mean,
pretty.
how many issues are there? For
Four in
There's
total.
4. Do you know what
So
I'd
that's
really
about
like to see?
40
I'd really
pages.
like to have Aftershock produce a nice slipcase for it.
Oh, that would be lovely, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't it just be
nice.
a nice slipcase for that? Would be absolutely stunning. If you're watching this, guys, Mike,
yeah,
in your own
slipcase,
time, get your hand in your pocket, mate.
Yeah, yeah, I quite like that. But I mean, it is. It doesn't have a spine. No, it doesn't have anything on the spine. I don't know if you've noticed that. But I think that's because it's so thin, the spine. But again, it's like I kind of struggle to tell people it's oversized because it's physically oversized, but it's also 40 pages, which is also oversized. So it's a bit, it's two plus. It's double oversized. So yeah, I think it's a nice book. It's a good book. I
mean, you're rightfully proud of it because.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I haven't finished it, so
Well, yes.
I'm hoping we land. I mean, I know Garth's script has stuck the landing. I hope I can also stick the landing. But I've done enough of Garth's books now to know how to do that. I know how to sell what. I said before on a podcast with Garth that it often. I mean, for me, my job is for Garth to tell me his story and for me to tell you the story so that you get Garth's story,
Sure.
and to tell it as well as I can. There's been a fair number of comparisons of my art to Steve Dillon's. I think that's largely down to we're both trying to do the same job, which is tell Garth's story well.
I think also the emotion that you put into the faces. I think that.
Look, I will take a Steve Dillon comparison every day of the week. That's I will never not take one. I mean, our mutual friend, Garth and I, is Rob Williams, and Rob's sort of fascinated by the fact that he's often said to me, Garth seems to get the best out of you when you're doing a story together, and I think it's because you're afraid of Garth a bit, and he might be right. There's a slight fear that I've got it wrong always. So I'm always trying a little bit harder. Whereas with a lot of other writers, I know it's like, oh, this will be fun to do. They'll not expect this, but it'll be great fun. And the writer gets like, oh, that's really fun. Whereas I do that with Garth. Garth's like, well, that's not what I wrote. And I'm going, all right, I'll pare it back. I'll bring it back to what it was. And then it'll be, yeah, that's exactly what I wanted. And Rob will often go, he really does get the best out of you. It's like, okay then, Rob.
Yes, because he's intimidating the crap out of you.
I'm totally afraid of him. That's why, because he's a big, tall fella, and I'm only little. I'm only a wee one.
Oh my word. With the final, I mean, I don't want to talk about the final, but I mean, you're in it now. You're in the final stretch. I mean, reading this first issue, I mean, you're talking about a big action scene. Bombastic.
Well, we're going to. I mean, in the final book, we're essentially going to come back to those characters. So
I'm really I'm hoping it's going to be a real, like that shimmering heat kind of. I mean, the comparison I have is kind of like the ending to Empire of the Sun, where it was it's a kind of like a muted end. It just kind of it had that emotional.
I think we'll deliver. I think we'll deliver. I remember doing string bags and reading the end and going, oh wow, I felt that in my core.
Yeah.
And I could see how it would be done, and it was the same with this as well. I think, I mean, it's certainly in much the same way. I think that Rob thinks Garth gets the best out of me in the war stuff. I think we get the best out of Garth in the war stuff as well, because I think he is so respectful to the people and the events that he doesn't in any way try and over egg that.
Sure.
He's trying to deliver the truth of it. And sometimes delivering the truth means kind of, telling you the real, giving you the facts and giving you characters.
We definitely got that with Dreaming Eagles as well. So
yeah. So
well,
yeah, I mean, we're definitely. I mean, we're essentially the end of it does circle back, and you can see that the characters have all changed from what's gone before, and I mean, it is not spoiling anything by saying that the Chindits expedition was a complete disaster. Yeah. That's the thing. So this is how that has impacted on those people and how they meet their how they face
we'll leave it there. We'll leave it.
I don't want to spoil it for anyone.
Yeah, we'll leave it.
It looks amazing. In the end, everyone gets superpowers, and no, that's clearly not what's going to happen. I mean, we all know what we're in for here. I mean, at this point, if you pick up a Garth book and expect a happy ending, I don't know what to tell you.
No, you definitely you need to be doing a little bit more Garth reading for that action to go. Okay. Yeah. Lion and the Eagle, you're into the final stretch. What's kind of next for you down the line? Is there anything that you can talk to us about now?
Yeah, well, there's an issue. I've done a fill-in issue. So yeah, well, Soul Plumber is coming out. The last issue of it is out this month, I think, at some point.
Yeah,
that's issue 6 of Soul Plumber, and hopefully it'll get a collection. I mean, I think it's done quite well for DC. It's done me no harm for DC. DC up to that point wouldn't have known who I was from a hole in the ground. And now I'm a guy who can meet deadlines and do good work and deliver on time. So it's like discovering you've got a pilot that can land the plane every time, no matter what the weather. It's like that's a pilot you'll fly with again. So that that's coming out, and then in May I think is Time Before Time, which is the Image comic by Declan Shalvey and Rory McConville.
I've got piles of it somewhere. Yep, I'm a fan.
Yeah, and so so essentially, I think they do story arcs, and it's a time travel police noir, police adventure-y. Well, it's a time travel kind of drama cop thing, isn't it? Really, the best way. I'm trying to figure out the best way to describe it. And it is rollicking good fun, and every time they have the end of a story arc, I think they fill an issue or two with a kind of incidental story, which is sort of not part of the main storyline, but fills in a little bit of the background of what's happening and who the world. And so the issue I do is I can't remember the character's name, but the FBI agent who saunters off on the adventure has left a partner behind, and it's about him and what he, when he discovers she's missing, what he does. So that's one issue, and that'll be out, I think, by the last issue of the Lion and the Eagle. So there's a couple of months. Like
there's going to be another week where you're going to have a lot of pages
another
on
week.
the
Well,
track,
yeah. So that, I mean, it's an extraordinary amount of work on the shelves by one person. I would have liked it spread out over the entire year. It would have been great if I had all that work in 1 year on the shelf. But
well, this is where you get the signature money at the Comic Cons in summer. All these people bringing all these books to you.
All the books in one go. Yeah, I should start charging for signatures. I should, if I ever get that comic convention again. And
well, I mean, okay, let's kind of tie this up then. Well, let's talk about conventions and events that you maybe. Let's come back to the convention story. Because I've been speaking to a lot of creatives over the course of pandemic, and it really is a case of we can't wait to get back, or you are not going to get me out of this bunker until the radiation level has dropped.
Yes. Well, I was all very excited about some world travel post COVID. I mean, post COVID. I think we're reaching a point where COVID is still out there, and what you're doing is taking calculated risks about how well you can survive that. And if you're like fully boosted and you wear a mask and you take sensible precautions, you've minimized your risks. It's never going to be zero. Yeah. It's never going to be zero. And in the same sense,
common sense is never common.
Yeah. Well, and like flying a plane, the risk is never zero, but the risk can be mitigated in many, many respects. So, I mean, I'd love it if we all did a lot more, if schools and buildings, I mean, if a comic convention had great ventilation, things like that. If outdoors comic conventions would be great, but Northern Ireland, obviously the weather won't be with you. So there are shows which I've been invited to just prior to the first COVID breaking out, and was all set for. Was super excited to go to, and then we had COVID, and now we're on the verge of World War III. So,
well, yes,
I don't know where we're going to be.
I mean, this is where the editor of the Daily Mail is just clapping his hands and he's very, very happy that there's disaster in the world for him to put on his pages. Yeah.
I mean,
but any shows that you are thinking of going to this year?
I think I had a list of them. I can't remember what they are. I love shows that are on this island. I will always go to a show on this island, north or south, in Ireland. But there are very few and far between. So I think there might be one in July, which I don't think I can talk about yet, but it might be a good one.
Well, when's Holden Con getting organised?
Holden Con every day in my room here in my studio. Every day is Holden Con. The sad thing is, when I started my career, I had plenty of money from working in comics and working a day job. So a comic convention was like fun. I could just pay to go to a convention, and as you get older and you start working weekends and you only do comics, now they're a massive sink of money. It's not, even if you're flown over and all your food and accommodation is paid for, and that's great, they can still cost you a lot of money because you're losing out on work. And for me as well, like frequently, I did a show once which was in, was it maybe Scarborough Sci-Fi Convention, I think it was, which was nice. It was great to get to, but I had to travel from Northern Ireland to Scarborough, which I had unwittingly later realized was so far away that I spent all day traveling to, and did the show, and a whole day traveling back. It's like 4 days gone for the price of 2. So it's not as practical as I would like to get to a lot of these shows. And I've been invited to, I mean, there's shows I've been invited to in, there's one Montenegro, which I was invited to prior to COVID, and it was just as COVID was starting, and it looked like, is this a good idea going or not? And then the following year, I think I got another invite, and it was like, I'm definitely not going this year. This year it was like, do you know what? It's starting to be, if everyone, I can sort of see that might be possible. Now there's a world war in Europe.
Yeah. I mean, I remember pre-COVID. I think it was Garth that went to Japan, or he was invited to a Japan con, and he went. I think he went mostly to meet the fans as well, or partly to meet the fans, but also because he'd never been to Japan.
Yeah,
And
just to
if
go
he's
to
going to get
Japan.
invited to go out there and check it out. So when the invite to Lake Como Comic-Con comes in, I'm fully expecting you to sort of like
Where's
think,
Lake Como?
Lake Como is a very pretty part of Italy.
Oh yeah, I'll definitely do that.
Yeah,
then.
you know that the opening sequence to the follow-up to Casino Royale. Yeah, that the
Quantum of Solace.
Quantum of Solace. Yeah, that opening sequence with the nice long lake and the very pretty part of Italy. There you go. That's when you start looking and seeing pictures of that on Google's image search, and you go, you know what, that might be worth the flight. That might be worth heading over.
My favorite convention I went to was one that I went to in Athens.
Nice.
I'd never been to Athens before, and they invited me over, and it was so I went, yeah, I'll go to Athens, and I had no idea, I think, how deep down in my soul I would fall in love with Athens. I mean, and I don't. I mean, there's a stupid part of me that thinks maybe I'm Greek, maybe maybe the Holdens were originally Greek, because somehow I feel at home here, and I really feel at home. And there's a lot of little short fat men about, and that matches me very much. And then there's another part of me
couple of years, like you may be an expat. We'll see.
Yeah, well, and then there's another part of me that thinks, no, Paul, what's happened there is you fell in love with Harryhausen films and the Greek ones especially. So you think you're Jason and the Argonauts. That's what's going on in your head. But I flew over to Greece. I saw the place from the plane. I looked down. I went, oh my God, that is the perfect place. Just the crowding of the buildings, the kind of the sort of hills that rise out of it, one with the Parthenon and the various other ones, and then the fact that it's in that sort of basin. I looked at it. I just fell in love. I fell in love from the airplane, and then we landed, and I wandered around a bit, and you're walking along like Northern Ireland, so. We have our stone circles, or not stone circles. We have these kind of circles where somebody was buried 2,000 years ago, and you go, oh look, this is an Iron Age settlement. And you go, well, it's a kind of mound in the ground. And going, oh yeah, it's very sophisticated. And you go, oh, is it? And then you go to Athens, right? And you're walking along, and you see this kind of beautiful statue, or these kind of pillars that reach up to the sky, and you're thinking, oh well, they were doing this while we were making like mounds out of like half a molehill. What is I mean, there's something wrong. Something was going on here that was not going on in Bogtrotterland where I'm from. This is not on. So I mean, and you're walking around, and you're stumbling across these beautiful bits of, because Athens is not, it's very poor. It's not particularly well off, and so there's quite a lot of the monuments there that are not. There was a park there that had I think it was something like the Temple of Apollo or something in it, and it was basically you could wander around. There was no one there. It wasn't paid in or anything. It was just in the middle of a park, a great big sort of temple, and with columns that no lid on it, no top on it. The columns were sort of lying around a bit. And there was a couple of them up because they'd been destroyed by a couple of earthquakes and stuff over the course of centuries. And you're kind of looking at it going, oh my God, I can feel this place sapping right through my bones. And so I went home, and I said to my wife, I fell in love with Athens. We should go to Athens. And she went, okay, when would you like to go? I went, hang on. We went about 2 weeks later. Went for a week in Athens. So I just practically told the pilot to turn the plane back and let's just take me back there. So I'd like to get back out to Athens again. Whether it's a convention or not, I don't really care.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, let me search on Twitter. Let me find an Athens con. Let's see if we can tag you into that. And
amazing.
That'd be really cool. So the book, I'm a fan, and it's been a joy to talk to you about it. Lion and the Eagle issue 1 is out on shelves as we speak. Issue 2, I believe, is a couple of weeks away. It
should be, yeah. Issue 2 has one of my favorite covers. Like I really love all the covers that Tim Bradstreet's done, but issue 2's got this great kind of iconic looking cover of raised weaponry above a Japanese flag. It looks really cool.
Cool. Anyone who's watching who wants to find out more, they can go to aftershockcomics.com, lion-and-the-eagle / and they can find out more about the book. PJ, I know we had a bit of a delay of 2 weeks, but it's been an absolute pleasure.
That's all right. That gave me time to get 2 curries in.
I know. Yeah, this has been a meal of a podcast, and it's been well worth talking to you, and it's just been a joy. Thank you so much indeed for coming on, and all the very best and success to the book as it barrels on.
All right, thanks very much.
Excellent stuff indeed. Thank you so much. So yeah, that's our show, our incidental episode. Back again on Sunday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. GMT. Do join us for a bit of a special show, as we're hopefully going to be joined by Tess Fowler, talking about her return to comics, art, and the way that she's weathered through the last couple of years, because she has not had a great time of it, but she's battled through and she's come stronger at the other end. So looking forward to talking to Tess. And Mark Serby is wanting to talk about the Batman, so we're going to be talking about that as well. Whether I'm going to get the chance to see it before Sunday, who knows? I mean, I know that it's all about finding a screen with only 3 other people in it. I think that's the thing. It's a case of kind of keeping myself nicely distanced, and that's obviously that's the challenge, isn't it? Thank you very much indeed. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you for another Talking Con, a cup of tea with an Englishman in San Diego on Sunday. From myself, from PJ.
Bye.
We'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.